Greetings and welcome to Tactical Inc., your portal to the captivating realm of all things Lorcana. I'm Bradley.
And I'm Alex. In today's video, we will review the cards of each color that have gotten better from the first chapter and what has gotten worse. We will also talk about cards that may get better with the future sets. Now, these aren't the only cards that could be named, but they're the ones that we thought were the most prevalent.
Alright, so let's get started and look at the cards from the first chapter that got better due to the release of Rise of the Floodborn.
So let's start out with Amber. The card that I see has gotten better in Amber since this first set is Simba Protective Cub. Simba is an Amber character that costs 2 ink to play and is inkable. He has 2 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. Simba is a storyborn hero and prince. He has bodyguard. There simply haven't been any new characters to compete with Simba as the cheapest bodyguard. His relevance has increased in Rise of the Floodborn, being a staple in any Amber deck, whether you play Amber Amethyst aggro, Steel Song midrange, Mufasa Roulette, or something else.
And I feel like the game's tempo just keeps getting faster and faster, and there are more and more lower level aggro cards like Pinocchio Star Attraction and Noi Orphan Thief to start gaining good amounts of lore very early. So Simba with his bodyguard coming in on turn 2 is so crucial into protecting those lower level characters for a few turns, allowing you to really get the lore pumping. Moving on to Amethyst, I believe Befuddle has gotten better, especially for late game decks. Befuddle is an action card that costs 1 and is inkable. It has the effect, return a character or item with a cost of 2 or less to their player's hand. So this is a great card to control the field early, giving you time to set up your board. And now we are seeing cards that cost 1 or 2 that can be dangerous. Pinocchio Star Attraction, Madam M Snake, and Simba Protective Cub are all good early game targets for Befuddle to get them out of the way. So you can either swing into another character or begin gaining lore yourself. It also works against early game items such as Lantern. And if you get this late game, or even sometimes early game and you have no target, then you can just ink this card.
Befuddle can be really good for bouncing your own characters now too, because bounce has become such a prevalent theme in the game. Bouncing characters like Madam M Snake or Merlin Squirrel, as well as protecting your own characters like Pinocchio Star Attraction, and basically be able to ready them for the next turn. Moving on to Emerald, the card that I see improving here is Sudden Chill. This is an Emerald action. It's a song card that costs 2 to play and it's inkable. Since it's a song, it says a character with cost 2 or more can exert to sing this card for free, and its effect says that each opponent chooses and discards a card. This was an obvious improvement, with discard really becoming an archetype in set 2. The discard theme needs to get going quickly, and Sudden Chill is one of the fastest options that you've got.
And Sudden Chill has improved due to the number of discard cards being added into the game. And I don't think the discard train is going to slow down the next set. Continuing into Ruby, I chose Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor. Mickey is a Ruby character that is inkable and costs 8 ink to play. He has 5 strength and 5 willpower with 4 lore. He is a Dreamborn and a hero, with his only effect being the keyword evasive. So 8 ink is an expensive ink cost. We saw a few decks in Chapter 1 run this card because it's evasive and lore capabilities. But now we're seeing it more due to cards like Zero to Hero and Mufasa Betrayed Leader that can get it out faster. And with Mufasa, you can bring out Mickey out on your opponent's turn so he is ready to quest next turn. Also with cards like the Queen Disguised Peddler, you can discard him to gain the 4 lore easily. There are just more options for him now due to Rise of the Floodborn. Now we get into Sapphire. So I chose Tamatoa So Shiny. Tamatoa is a Sapphire character that is inkable and costs 8 to play. He has 5 strength with 8 willpower and 1 lore. He is a Storyborn and a villain. He has 2 effects. The first called, What Have We Here? It says, whenever you play this character and whenever he quests, you may return an item card from your discard to your hand. His second effect is called Glam. It says, this character gets plus 1 lore for each item you have in play. So he's gotten better due to the item support that we've seen in this set with things like Hiram Flaversham, Toymaker, Popsicle, and Maurice's Workshop. With Tamatoa, you're going to be running items and lots of them. Even if a few get removed along the way by something like Benja, Guardian of the Dragon Gem, Beast Hard-Headed, or Judy Hopps, you can bring them back with Tamatoa. Since there isn't an item board wipe yet, this card has just gotten better and will continue to get better until there's a mass item removal coming around.
Yeah, he's very strong, and this is one of the key cards for the Ruby Sapphire Popsicle deck that enables it to win games so well. Looking on to Steel, one of the great cards in Steel that just keeps on improving is Grab Your Swords. This is an action card that costs 5 to play and is uninkable. It's a song. That means that if you have a character with cost 5 or more, you can sing it for free. Its effect says, deal 2 damage to each opposing character. 2 willpower is still a critical number in the game, and there's many new characters that fall under that threshold. Grab Your Swords can deal with so many threats, such as Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, Pinocchio Star Attraction, and even ones that have ward like Prince John and Bucky.
And we are seeing more and more of these decks become aggro, and most of them have 1/1 or 2/2 characters and that are adding tons of lore early in the game. And Grab Your Swords is one of those cards that can really hinder decks like that, especially if you are able to sing earlier than turn 5 with something like Queen Commanding Presence or Ariel, Spectacular Singer. Moving on to the next section, we're going to talk about the cards that were playable, but now since Ride of the Floodborn has released, you may not see around anymore.
Starting off with Amber, one of the cards that you're not seeing played as often is Hades, Lord of the Underworld. Hades is an Amber character that costs 4, and he is uninkable. He has 3 strength, 2 willpower, and 1 lore. He's a storyborn villain and deity. He has the effect Well of the Souls. Its effect says when you play this character, return a character card from your discard to your hand. Now don't get me wrong here, Hades is still a phenomenal card for character recursion. His usefulness has just been overshadowed in favor of some other uninkable choices, such as Sleepy's Flute. That being said though, I think he'll still find his place once again in the future sets.
And there's one deck I still see him in, and that's the Mufasa Betrayed Leader deck. He's just a good tool to bring Mufasa back. However, that seems just like one of the only meta decks that Hades is still in. Alright, let's move on to Amethyst. And my pick is Magic Mirror. Magic Mirror is an Amethyst item card that costs 2 and is uninkable. It has the effect Speak that says, exert and pay 4 ink to draw a card. Rise of the Floodborn brought on a lot of card draw for every color. In Amethyst, we have Merlin Rabbit, a character that draws your card when it enters the battlefield and when it leaves it. Problem with Magic Mirror is you're not guaranteed to draw a card every time, which you paying 2 ink to get nothing in return can be a very bad situation. Whereas if you play something like Merlin Rabbit, and you're more than likely going to draw 2 cards no matter what.
This is one of those cards that, now that there is so much great card draw, I don't see it ever really being played well again. There's just so many better options out there. Looking forward to Emerald. One card that you don't see as often now is Kuzco Temperamental Emperor. Kuzco is an Emerald character that costs 5 and he's uninkable. He has 2 strength and 4 willpower with 3 lore. Kuzco is a storyborn and a king. He has ward and the effect No Touchy, which says when this character is challenged and banished, you may banish the challenging character. If you played Emerald in Chapter 1, Kuzco is probably your top choice, but not anymore. Emerald is headed in different directions in this set, namely through discard and through ping damage. Now, Kuzco doesn't advance either of those 2 themes, and since he is uninkable, he's not been making the final cut.
Moving on to Ruby, I chose Dragonfire. Dragonfire is a Ruby action that costs 5 to play and is uninkable. Its effect is simple. Banish target character. So before we get comments below saying that how is this a bad card, why is it on the list, I still think Dragonfire is a good card. However, with cards released like Lady Tremaine, Imperious Queen, that makes an opponent banish a character, and Yzma Scary Beyond Reason is another one that just removes characters, there are just more and more options to remove characters. And they are more diverse sometimes than Dragonfire. We're seeing a lot of aggro decks, so cards like Let the Storm Rage On and the Teeth and Ambitions cards that can be played for cheaper to banish things are just seeing more play. Let's move on to Sapphire, where my choice was Robin Hood, Unrivaled Archer. Robin Hood is a Sapphire character that costs 6 and is inkable. He has 4 strength and 4 willpower, with 2 lore. He is a Storyborn and hero. Robin Hood has 2 effects. The first one is called Feed the Poor, and it says, when you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw a card. And his second effect is called Good Shot, which says, during your turn, this character gains evasive. So Robin Hood used to be one of the few draw cards in Sapphire. Rise of the Floodborn changed that, introducing Popsicle, Haram Flaversham, Judy Hopps, Gaston Intellectual Powerhouse, and even more. Most of these cards have lower costs than Robin Hood, and can draw cards even if you have more cards in your hand than your opponent. And for that reason, you don't see this guy played. I like his second effect to possibly remove evasive cards like Minnie Mouse Surfer, however, the cost is just too much right now.
I never liked having to use Robin Hood in my decks in the first chapter, but it was just one of those cards that you had to run sometimes because you had no other options for card draw. But having things like Hiram Flaversham with Popsicle, you don't have any issue with drawing cards in Sapphire anymore, and Robin Hood's becoming obsolete. Moving on to Steel, we have Beast Hard-Headed. Now Beast is a 5 ink character, and he is inkable. He has 4 strength and 4 willpower with 2 lore. He's a Storyborn prince and hero with the effect Break that says, whenever you play this character, you may banish chosen item. Items are even stronger now than they were before, looking at cards like Sorcerer's Spellbook and Popsicle. So why is the Beast washed up now? The simple answer is Benja. Benja is a cheaper and more effective card for item removal. You may see multiple Benjas being played in one game, but it's unlikely that you could do the same with Beast's high ink cost.
The only reason I could even see Beast being played over Benja is to sing songs in Steel Song. However, I would much rather play Benja and play something else on turn 5.
Yeah, looking at some other 5-cost cards that you can get in Steel Song, like the Queen Commanding Presence, who just comes out earlier, I think they just have plenty of choices there to where Beast isn't really necessary.
This brings us to our last section, what may improve. And in this section, we'll talk about cards that we think will get better as the next set, Into the Inklands, is released, or even sets beyond that.
To start out, we'll look at Amber again. And the card that will most likely keep on improving is Mufasa Betrayed Leader. Mufasa is an Amber character that costs 5 ink and is inkable. He has 3 strength and 3 willpower with 2 lore. Mufasa is a Storyborn mentor and king, and he has the effect The Sun Will Set that says, when this character is banished, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, you may play that character for free and they enter play exerted. Otherwise, put it on the top of your deck. The longer that people experiment with Mufasa, he's already getting better by the day. As we get more strong characters in the new sets who can be played for free, Mufasa's just going to keep on improving.
And I believe top deck manipulation is something you'll see more and more in future sets. And we already see cards like Ursula's Cauldron and Yzma Alchemist looking at the top card of your deck. Let's move on and look at Amethyst. And look at my pick, Ursula's Cauldron. Ursula's Cauldron is an amethyst item that costs 2 and is uninkable. Its effect is called Peer into the Depths, and it says, exert this item. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put one on the top of your deck and the other on the bottom. Now we've seen the release of 2 cards that love top deck manipulation. Those being Mulan Reflection and one we just talked about, Mufasa Betrayed Leader. Mulan wants to get songs on the top of your deck, while Mufasa wants to have characters on top of your deck. As sets continue to release cards that rely on having certain cards on the top of your deck, I can see Ursula's Cauldron continuing to get better and better.
Yeah, and I see Ursula's Cauldron working really well already with a card that has been released for the 3rd chapter, Sorcerer's Hat, which that card shows that if you name the top card of your deck, you're allowed to draw it and put it into your hand. So using Ursula's Cauldron first, you can use that in conjunction with Sorcerer's Hat to be able to be guaranteed to draw the card that you need. For Emerald, a card that may improve is Belle Hidden Archer. Belle is an Emerald character that costs 5 and is uninkable. She has 3 strength, 3 willpower, and 3 lore. Belle is a Floodborn, hero, and a princess. She has Shift 3, and the effect called Thorny Arrows that says whenever this character is challenged, the challenging character's player discards all the cards in their hand. This is a card that I'm sure a lot of people were excited to use, but she fell short of expectations. If we can get a lower cost card though to shift her into play as soon as turn 3, she might finally be worth using.
And we have cards like Iago and the Beast is Mine that makes opponents challenge. And I feel like Belle is missing just one good card to make this card honestly overpowered. However, we just have not got that card yet.
Yeah, if there was something like the Beast is Mine that said that this character specifically must be challenged, something along those lines, and if we can get her going faster for the discard theme, she's really going to be great.
Alright, let's look at Ruby. I chose Scar, Shameless Firebrand. Scar is a Ruby character that costs 8 and is uninkable. He has 6 strength and 6 willpower, with only 1 lore. He is a Floodborn, villain, and king. Scar has Shift 6, where you may pay 6 ink to play this character on top of another character you control named Scar. He also has the effect Rousing Speech, which says, when you play this character, ready your characters with costs of 3 or less. They cannot quest for the rest of the turn. I'll go ahead and say it now, I don't know if this card will ever be a viable option in the future. However, it is a card that's going to continue to get better. His effect readies characters that cost 3 or less. So your Tinkerbell, Tiny Guardian, Robin Hood Capable Fighter, Elsa Snow Queen, and more can activate effects twice. As more and more characters of a cost of 3 or less have exerted abilities, this card's usability will grow. And yes, we have Ready the Flames, LeFou Instigator, and Shield of Virtue that work on one character per turn, but Scar can affect multiple characters at a time. I'm not sure if there's going to be enough powerful effects at that low of an ink cost, at least of yet, but maybe in the future sets we could see people at least entertaining the idea of running Scar to activate multiple effects more than once in a turn. Moving on to Sapphire, I chose Ariel, who's at Collector. Ariel is a Sapphire character that costs 4 and is unequal. She has 3 strength and 3 willpower, with 1 lore. She is a Storyborn, Hero, and Princess. Ariel has the effect, Look at this stuff. And it says, whenever you play an item, you may ready this character. So I believe Rise of the Floodborn upped the item game since the first chapter, especially in Sapphire, building more on an item theme. Ariel is going to just have more and more shots to go off, and possibly even be broken one day. Just right now, it's hard to have her with her ink dry without someone banishing her.
Looking at cards like Popsicle that can cycle and be played more than one time, I could see things like that it could be even more powerful than Popsicle in the future or more effective, making Ariel a really overpowered character. Moving on to Steel, a card that is going to keep getting better for sure is Beast Tragic Hero. He's a Steel character that costs 5 and is inkable. He has 3 strength and 5 willpower with 2 lore. He's a Floodborn, Hero, and Prince, and he has Shift 3. Beast's effect is called It's Better This Way. It says that at the start of your turn, if this character has no damage, draw a card. Otherwise, he gets +4 strength this turn. He's one of the very best cards that was put out in Rise of the Floodborn, and moving forward, he might get even better. The way that he could get better is if we get to shift him out earlier than turn 5. Then this card draw engine could become simply amazing. Right now, there just isn't a lower cost beast to get him out faster.
Well, that's all we have for today. What cards do you think's gotten better, or even worse? What cards do you think will improve? Tell us in the comments below.
Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with the latest Tactical Ink news.
And also be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can tune in every Friday for a new episode of Tactical Ink. See you next week.